everybody, Doug here. This is going to be episode 3 of the Retro Review Show. And before we hop into it, first off, the games that I told you that I was going to do for this episode, I ended up not doing those. So if you played those games, I'm sorry, but we're going to do them eventually, at some point. Uh, I don't know, I just got in a weird mood and I decided not to do those games. So we're going to get into the games that we are doing in just a second here. But just to let you know what's going to be coming up pretty soon, if you're an Avenged Sevenfold fan, we're going to be doing some pretty cool. We have me, Leo, and 2 other people that we're working on getting into the mix of things here. Basically, we're going to do an intro episode where we are going to, basically we're just going to talk about, Avenged Sevenfold. We're going to talk about what albums we're doing, what albums we're not doing. Uh, and basically, it's going to be a format where I think how we're going to do it is if you want, you can listen to the podcast on any platform that you usually listen to it on. So if you listen to Apple Podcasts, that's nothing. Well, let me start that over. If you listen on Spotify, nothing's going to change for you because you're going to have the definitive episode edition of that podcast. It's going to work a lot how the Gravel and Gold review, the Dirk Bentley review I did earlier. I think it was like episode 2 or episode 1. But yeah. So the Spotify version is going. We're going to be doing. Well, both versions are going to have a track by track analysis, but Spotify is going to actually. We're going to actually play the songs in the episode, so you'll be able. Like we're gonna play the song, and then we're gonna give our thoughts on the song, and then go to the next song, if that makes sense. And how it's going to work. Uh, Avenged Sevenfold, metal albums in general can get pretty lengthy. So I'm going to run this by, everybody that we're doing the episode with. But what we're probably going to do is we're going to probably split the albums in halves. Do one half 1 week, one another half another. And after we get through each album, we're going to rank them, kind of like how me and Leo's been doing the Resident Evil reviews. But yeah, so. If you're listening on Spotify, you're gonna hear the song. You're gonna hear our thoughts on the song. But if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, or if you're listening to us on Overcast or Google Play Store, any of those other platforms that aren't Spotify, you're not gonna hear the songs because it's just. Anchor's got this this partnership with Spotify to where we can take songs from Spotify, put them in the episode, but we can't have those. We don't have the rights for those songs like Spotify does. So we can't put those on the Apple Podcast versions. And I'm going to explain this again on the intro episode that we do for that. So just keep tuned for that. Keep tuned. Stay tuned. That's what I meant to say. Next up. I don't know who the guest is going to be yet, but I am looking to do a Star Wars Jedi Survivor review episode and a Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom review episode. I just finished those 2 games, so I'm looking to review those pretty soon. I'm deep in Diablo 4, and almost everybody I know is playing that game right now. So I'm gonna probably. I started a clan in Diablo 4. We're called the Skadoodles. So I'm probably going to get some of the people from that clan to come in, and we're going to talk about Diablo 4 at some point. I don't know if we're going to have. We might even have 2 episodes, where we get, initial thoughts, and then we go ahead and we do a full blown review. Let's see, is there anything else coming up I can think of? No, if you haven't yet, you can catch up on the Resident Evil reviews. You can catch up on. Really any of the episodes that are out now, which are most of the Resident Evil reviews. And then there's one where we kind of screw off and we talk about Pokemon and Zelda and some other cool stuff. But without any further ado... Oh, one more thing. If you didn't get a chance to catch my show La Berge in May, I am going to be there again August 18th and 19th. I just signed the contract, sent them back. That's going to be a thing. 18th and 19th of August, 8 p.m. to midnight. Okay, now we'll get into the show. So this is episode 3, like I said earlier. The 3 games we're talking about is Ed, Edd N Eddy, The Misadventures on. Well, you know how it is. It's not an episode of the Night Ride Home podcast if somebody doesn't call me. Basically, anytime somebody calls me, it throws the entire program off. And no matter how many times I tell people not to call me, it never fails. Anyway, okay, so I was talking about Ed, Edd N Eddy and the Misadventures. It's a game on the Game Boy Advance. It is, and the way I go about picking which games we do for these is I just go back to, like, I look at all the games that were on these these systems, and I was always thinking, man, I wish I could have played that game. And I was a big fan of the Ed, Edd N Eddy show when it came out. So, but I never got a chance to play any of the Ed, Edd N Eddy games. You know, they had Cartoon Network had just a metric boatload of games that they had, mainly on the Game Boy Advance, if I remember right. And then, you know, kind of towards the Nintendo DS era, they still had some, but it kind of fizzled out. But yeah, this is a cool little game. You know, it's just a side scroller where you can play as Ed or Eddy, and each one of them have different, like, it looks like you would expect a Game Boy Advance game of the Ed, Edd N Eddy, you know, trademark, yeah, we'll go with trademark. Like, it looks like you'd expect it to, right? The only part where I would say that the characters kind of look off is, you know, there are these like little 2D sections where, you know, you can see them talking to each other, and, you know, the design of the characters there does look a little off. Like, I know it's a 2D you know, 2D side scroller on the Game Boy Advance, but even still, it just looks weird. But honestly, I'm not even worried about that. I mean, it's a Cartoon Network licensed game. Oh, we've got some rain. I hope this does not cancel the baseball game. It's already halfway there. So each one of the Eds, I'm gonna call them the Eds, or the Ed boys, they all have their different uses. You know, like Eddy, he launches water balloons, which you can use that to. Oh wait, no, Eddy has the stink bombs. He has the stink bombs, which you can use to, like, distract the dogs or the birds, which are pretty much the only, like, mainly. The main enemies of this game are just random animals. I mean, they're not doing anything wrong. You're in their territory, really. I swear, I drive home every day, right? And I never get phone calls. Never. I never get phone calls. But when I hit the record button on Anchor, everybody calls me. Anyway, so yeah, Eddy has the stink bombs, and, you know, you're basically just using that to attack, you know, defenseless animals. And Double D, he has a slingshot, right? He shoots stuff. You can use him to, like, shoot stuff down and stuff like that. And you can also use that to shoot the defenseless animals if you so choose. But Double D also has the ability to where he can tinker with stuff, basically. There's a part pretty early on where Kevin he's got a water hose, and he's keeping you from getting into this party, right? And Double D is the only one that can figure out how to turn off the faucet, which is, you know, I know the other two are kind of idiots, but Jesus Christ, that's kind of ridiculous. That's not really a tinkering thing, you know. And then, you know, Ed, he's the tank of the group, right? And he can use his head to, like, stomp stuff down, or he can wind up his arms and basically plow through anything, basically. And the game, there's not a whole lot to the game. Okay, we're just gonna go slow for no reason. That's great. The game is basically you're going through the cul-de-sac and you're collecting pennies because you want to get jawbreakers, and the jawbreakers give you nice little buffs. And, you know, there's not really a whole lot to it. You know, there's the stereotypical, oh, we gotta do a scam to get the jawbreakers, but, you know, there's not a whole lot to it. There's not a whole lot there. So I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna go ahead and rank this one. And let's see, the ranking I want to go with on this is I'm gonna put the Misadventures right underneath Castlevania 2 and above Captain America: The Adventures. And I'm not giving numbers because, one, I couldn't remember the numbers even if I wanted to, but also I've actually ranked some of the games that are going to be coming up, you know, for later episodes. So just from there, we're going to go into the next game, which is Metal Arms Glitch in the System. This is a game on the GameCube. It might be on the PlayStation 2. I just remember from the GameCube. And I had such fond memories. This is just one of those games where I had it when I had my original GameCube, and what I would do is I would lug my GameCube, to the next block over, and we would all plug in our GameCube controllers, and we would play this game, the multiplayer in this game, which was basically, you're this little robot man, this little roboy, and you would get these weapons, and it was basically GoldenEye with robots, and they had these cool maps, but I never played the campaign, right? I never touched the single player part of it, and honestly, it's nothing crazy, right? It's the best way I could, like, if you like Ratchet and Clank, you're probably gonna like this game. It's like if you wanted Ratchet and Clank and your mom said, no, we got Ratchet and Clank at home, and then you got home and it was Metal Arms glitching the system. It's the story. I'm gonna be honest with you. Apparently, back in the GameCube, Xbox, PS2 era, there were no deaf people, right? There was nobody that had, hearing loss because they had subtitles. Okay, hopefully this is going to be the last time there's a pause in the episode. We're going to kind of fast forward this a little bit, unfortunately, because, all these phone calls kind of put off my recording time. But basically the campaign for Metal Arms, it's your stereotypical, old school military campaign where, the Sarge has a voice like this, and you're going through, you're killing other robots, and I mean that's pretty much all there is to it. I think we already talked about the lack of subtitles and how that was like a big. If a game doesn't have subtitles, I automatically kind of check out of the story because I know I'm not going to be able to get invested in it because my hearing sucks and I'm not going to be able to focus on what's going on, So yeah, basically that's it's just, it's a good campaign, but it's nothing groundbreaking, but so far nothing on this in this retro review, has been, honestly. So let's go ahead and look here at the ranking. I put Metal Arms, fairly high. I put it above Castlevania because honestly, if like the way I look at games, when I'm ranking them, is if the quality is there, which one am I more likely to go back and play again? And honestly, I'm going to go back and replay Metal Arms before I replay Castlevania. Not that Castlevania is a bad game, and Metal Arms isn't the best game of all time, and neither is Castlevania. But what it comes down to is the Castlevania doesn't really have a good hook to keep it going, and Metal Arms just has that. It has at least a campaign to go forward with, and if I could ever find some friends to come over and play the multiplayer for Metal Arms, I'm going to do that 1000% of the time, every time. So that's that, and we're going to roll back into the final game on this episode, which is Timesplitters, PS2 game. I believe, yeah, that sounds right, PS2. So this game is, Timesplitters has always been that franchise that I heard about all the time, but I just never got to actually take it for a spin. And I booted this game up, and immediately, I kind of got this, okay, so it's an old school first person shooter, cool. And I got into it, and you pick a level, and the levels, well, I mean, it's not really just levels, is it? It's you pick a level, and it's got a time period attached to it. It's like the first one was like, I think it's like 1920s Egypt, and you're going through tombs, you're killing these what's the word? You're basically killing these people in the pyramid, and then you have to get an item, right? I'm pretty sure it was a different item for every stage. You get the item, and then you turn around, and you have to go exactly the way you came, and you have to exit the level, right? On the way back out is when you're starting to get some, I guess these are like just abominations from time that come out, and they start attacking you, and you have to fight your way through them. This game is very simplistic, but I had the most fun with this game out of every other game that we have played, that I have played for Retro Review. It is just an absolute blast. Every level has it's a different time period and it's a different setting. And I would just say the there's like a there's I think it's like 3 or 4 levels that you start out with, and then you unlock more as you go. But the future setting is set in 2005, and boy, are we a disappointment, because let me tell you, the 2005 level is literally, it's a bunch of cyborgs and robots going around and people with cyborg augmentations, and we are just not up to snuff. We need to really kick it up a notch in this society. And uh, it's just, every level was a lot of fun to go through. It can be challenging. It definitely, it's got that old school, retro FPS challenge. But if you really if you give yourself into the game, and you take the time to learn, okay, I'm gonna take this corner. There's gonna be 3 enemies to the left and 1 to the right. You just learn the patterns, and you keep going, and you learn more every time you go through a level. And sometimes you might find shortcuts to get to a certain thing earlier than you would have earlier. And it's just one of those games, man, and it's at the top of the list so far. So that's going to be the end of this episode of Retro Review. And now I do have a definitive episode list made out now. The next episode is going to be the Burnout Legends port on the Nintendo DS. It's going to be Dragon Ball GT Final Bout on the Sega Genesis. New Super Mario Brothers 2 on the 3DS, and then Yoshi's Story on the Nintendo 64. So if you want to play any of those games to follow along and talk, well, not talk because you're not in the car with me, but if you just want to hear my thoughts on these games and you kind of play along as we go, those are the games you're looking for. So thanks for listening, everybody. Sorry for all the technical difficulties in this episode, and I will see you next time.